Hi everybody, it's Jen here with a tutorial on using distress markers to watercolor with. Obviously we're going to start with distress markers. These are the Tim Holtz distress markers. They have a brush tip on one end and a pen tip on the other, and we're actually going to use both of them today in our tutorial. These are water-based, water-reactive markers, which means that when you get them wet, they're designed to actually move around on the paper, which is exactly what we want today for watercoloring. And then I have my image here. This is Oopsie Daisy, one of the Oopsie Daisy stamps from Tailored Expressions, stamped onto 140-pound Strathmore watercolor paper in the yellow package, which is the 300 series, which they say is better. It's not the best quality, but this definitely will do for what we need. And then I have a water brush. It's just a water reservoir brush. I don't know what the brand is. I've had it for a while. And it's got a smaller tip on the end. And then I also have my craft mat underneath, and I'm actually going to use that to squeeze some water out on, so I have some water to dip my brush into. I have my handy dandy paper towel, and my image here is stamped in Archival Brilliance ink. It's been heat set. You can use any waterproof ink. You want to use something that's obviously not going to run when you get it wet. A couple of different brands will do that, and my favorite is actually the Palette Hybrid Noir, but I don't have any of that here at home, so I wasn't able to use that. But anything like the Brilliance, the Archival ink, or VersaFine, anything that you can make sure is going to be completely waterproof. You do kind of want to heat set them before you start painting, because nothing stinks more than getting started, getting everything out, get your image stamped, ready to go, and then you get it wet and it runs. So heat setting it is always a good idea. You can also heat emboss your images with clear embossing powder or black embossing powder to really make sure that they are completely waterproof. And that also helps keep the water in one place. You can see like all of these lines would be like a little wall to keep the water in if you were to heat emboss. So let's get started here. I'm going to start with, sorry, my kids are here. You're going to hear doors closing, opening and closing. They are upstairs making all kinds of noise. I'm going to start with the center of the flower, and I'm going to start with tea dye ink, and I'm going to go around the edges and just kind of color that in. And I'm going to color more towards the bottom. And then I'm going to take my pen, or my water brush, not my pen, and I'm going to just go over that and get it wet. And you can see how that almost immediately starts to bleed. Okay, I want to lighten that up, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to go get some, I wiped off my brush and I got some more water, and now I'm going to go over this middle part and it'll be lighter, and that'll cause it to fade. Okay, so that's going to be my center part. That's pretty much, I'm going to leave that for right now. I'm actually even going to heat set it just a little bit. So that doesn't react with anything that I paint around it. It's handy to have a heat gun around while you're working on painting, because it makes it so you can quickly dry things anytime you need to. The next thing I'm going to do is take my weathered wood, and I'm going to go into the petals, and I'm going to use the brush side of this, and I'm going to look for any places where there might be shadow. This is going to be a white daisy, so any place where the petals are underneath another petal is where I'm going to put in this. I'm coloring this upside down, so you're going to have to bear with my hand kind of being in the way a little bit. I'm trying not to, but I'm left-handed and it's upside down. It's a little hard to maneuver. So now I'm taking my water brush and going over, just lightly going over the areas that I colored in with my marker. And as I kind of go out, you can see that that marker reacts with it. And I'm not worried about perfect blending. Watercolor is a very fluid liquid medium that is not supposed to be perfect, and I don't worry about perfect blending. There are times when I want softer blending, and there are times when I don't care as much, but I very rarely worry about this has to be perfect. Now with my Copic markers, that's different, but with the watercolor, I want it to look and feel like watercolor. All right, so I'm gonna continue around and I'm gonna turn this a little bit so I can get to this other side. One of the nice things about these markers is that they will draw on wet paper, and I'm gonna show you how we can use that here in a little bit. One of the reasons why I'm doing a little bit and then painting a little bit is because I don't want the marker to dry completely. And while these are slower drying markers, they still eventually do dry, and once that happens, the pigment doesn't move as much as you want it to. All right, so I'm gonna keep going here. Because this is a wet medium and it's gonna stay wet, it's not like a Copic marker where you can just put your hand right over something that you've already painted. You do want to make sure you work kind of in an orderly system where you're working, start away from the hand that you color with and then work towards that, towards the very end, and rotate your picture so you're not sticking your hand in something that you've already colored, because nothing stinks more than ruining a picture because you stuck your hand in it. And I've done that many times. All right, so now I'm gonna finish up my shadows for the petals underneath. And I'm making this is gonna be a mostly white daisy. So these are just shadows that I'm adding in here. Well, now what we need to do is we need to add just a little bit of shadow on the creases in the petals. So I'm gonna take my same weathered wood marker and go back in and just go over the lines. I'm not staying one side or the other. This is a looser medium. It's gonna still look okay. I'm just gonna go right on over those areas. All right, so before that dries, and I haven't cleaned out my brush at all because I'm still using the same color. I haven't bothered to clean it out. I'm just kind of going around with that same thing. All right. This is a really nice watercolor paper if you're looking for one. Don't have a favorite already, or have some on hand. This is a nice one to pick up. It's the Strathmore 300 140 pound cold press watercolor paper. The cold press just is a tells you how much texture the paper is going to have. A hot press paper is going to be smoother than a cold press paper because hot press papers had heat added when it was when the paper was milled and squished out, and that makes it have a smoother finish. Cold press has more texture and tends to be a little bit less, I don't know what the right word to say is. Hot press paper tends to not be quite as absorbent as cold press paper. It just depends. They have a different look, different feel. I happen to love the texture of watercolor paper, so I like the cold press paper better. This is a great brand, and you can usually get it on sale sometimes, so I would suggest that if you're looking for something right around where you are that you can pick up fast. Now I want to go back in and I want to add some darker shadows into the petals, especially specifically on the ones that are really on the bottom. So like this one right here that's really on the bottom, this one over here. And for that I'm gonna use Dusty Concord, and it's a purple ink, and I know you're thinking you're crazy, that's not gray, that's not black. Why are you using that on a white flower? Purple is a great shadow color. It's very friendly with other colors. It's not like black where it will overpower. It blends in, it can be very subtle. I use it all the time. I use it probably lots of times where you wouldn't even know that I used purple to blend in as a shadow color, and it just gives a more realistic, I think, undertone to a picture, and it has more depth than black and gray. Black and gray are great and they have their place, but I think for me personally, purple is just such a, I don't know, it just gives more character to the images when you use purple. And subtle amounts, obviously you don't want to go overboard. And I'm just gently taking my water brush and just activating that. I'm not moving it around a whole lot. I don't want all of the petals to be purple. I just want a little bit of an undertone of some purple shadow. All right, and you can see how that's mixing in great. This looks just fine. what I'm gonna do now, and you can kind of see, I wanna show you one thing. What I was talking about before about not being too fussy about the water. See these areas like right here where that has the dry marks? That's one of the great things about watercolor, and this is one of the reasons why I didn't use the embossing powder, is because I love it when things go outside the lines a little bit with watercolor. It just gives it a more painted look. I really like it, just for me though. This last thing I'm gonna do here is I'm going to take my walnut stain and I'm going to go through kind of around these little dots and add a little bit more color. And then I'm gonna blend that out with my marker. And that's just gonna give that bottom part of that a little bit more color. And then I'm gonna hit these dots here with my walnut stain. And if that bleeds out, I don't care. So, and it was a little bit wet underneath there, I don't care if it bleeds out. So that's mostly done for right now. I could add a little bit of outline if I wanted to, kind of a warmer color to warm up the picture a little bit. I'm gonna use a little bit of scattered straw behind. And I'm gonna clean my water brush because I used that brown and I don't want that in the background. And I'm just gonna let that react with the water and blend out and create kind of a yellow glow behind my flower. One of the drawbacks about watercolor paper is that it'll be difficult to hand cut. If your image comes with a die, you're very lucky. You'll be able to line it up and cut it out. This one does happen to come with a die. I'm not gonna use it today, but you could very easily and quickly punch this out. 140 pound watercolor paper is gonna be it's very thick and it's gonna be very difficult to hand cut. If you wanted to fussy cut your image, you might want to use a thinner watercolor paper or find some other way to cut this, because this paper will not be forgiving at all when you try to get around tight, tiny corners. All right, this is just about wrapped up. All right, so there you go. There's a little bit of basic watercoloring using the Tim Holtz Distress markers. You can kind of see that's the finished image. I'll have hopefully a finished card to show you with this tomorrow. I will be back with a few more advanced techniques on using the distress paints for watercoloring images such as people and things like that at another time, show you how you can do some hair and things like that. But for today, that's just kind of a basic intro. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions or feedback, please let me know. I'd appreciate hearing them. Thanks. Have a great day.